Looking for ways to improve your pop-up in surfing? In this video, we're going to be doing exactly that, breaking down the movements, showing you what muscles you're using, and giving you exercises to help improve this. Hello, it's Talika from Kinetic Ability. Welcome back to another episode in our Surf Fit series. If you're new here, welcome to the channel and welcome back to those new subscribers. Any links mentioned in the video can be found in the description box down below. Let's jump into it. So hopefully you've been following the series, and if you have not, I highly recommend you go back and watch some of the episodes. Otherwise some things might not really make any sense to you. Right now we're going to look at the movement patterns for the pop-up, what muscles you use, and then the practical session. So if you want to skip straight to that, then I will leave the time on screen. As always, near the end of the episode, there will be some bonus tips where I cover hip mobility. So make sure you stick around for that. So the pop-up itself is a skill, and if you remember back to our previous episodes, there is this performance pyramid. At the top is your surf-specific skills, and in the middle sits your performance components such as strength and power, etc. And under that, again, you've got your movement capacity. So yes, you're going to be practicing your pop-up when you surf. However, if you don't have those layers underneath your skill, so you don't have the foundations, then your skill itself is going to suffer. We see so many people who just don't have the strength to physically push themselves up, yet alone do it in an explosive, fast way to then enable them to swing their feet under. So I think most people that tend to struggle, they either don't have the flexibility or the strength. But we're going to sort you out today. So in terms of movement patterns, it's another multi-planar movement. It's a combination of pushing, rotation and flexion. So let's have a look at a side-by-side comparison. I'm going to put the different stages of the pop-up on the right hand side of the screen, and I'm going to put the different movement patterns on the left using the anatomy app. Now I appreciate this is going to be quite fast, so I would recommend that you pause the video so you can observe both screens and perhaps rewatch it a couple of times to really understand the different phases. So here you can see that flexion going from a straight to a bent back. Here how the lats and the triceps are the main muscles involved. Then it's more serratus anterior and your pecs. Here you can see that rotation from the obliques is demonstrating the hip flexion. As well, you've got your adduction and internal rotation patterns going on. So here you can see it in real life, surfers paddling for the wave, and in one smooth motion, he has pushed up, rotated, and flexed his hip. Of course, all of these other muscles at the back and the front of your body are going to be helping to either stabilize or will be working at different parts of the movement. If you are interested in that, please check out the link in the description box below. If none of that made any sense to you, go back and watch episode 1. In terms of your energy systems, the pop-up is an explosive movement, which means it's more of an anaerobic energy system driven movement. So towards the end of your surfing session, you probably notice that your pop-ups are getting much slower, and that's because at the end of your session, there's going to be a different energy system providing you energy to do the pop-up, and it's not for explosive movement. So you might still have the strength to eventually get to your feet. You don't have that ability to do it very fast, which is exactly what defines power. As always, your personal considerations need to be taken into account. And for ways to test this, I recommend you check out the end of episode 2 and 3, where I include home screens to help identify these things. So let's apply this practically. Let's take an example of person A has a lack of upper body strength. And if you remember back to episode 1, these are the appropriate training variables for strength. So the first move is going to be a standard press up. So because it is a pushing pattern, we need to be strong in this motion. If this is too difficult for you, try the regression where you slowly control your body weight down. And when you reach the bottom, let your knees go on the floor and press back up into that top position. If it's too easy, fill up a bag with some weights. It can be tins, whatever you got. then back in that press up position, and same thing again. So just a quick point on technique, you want your elbows between 0 to 45 degrees, and as a cue I just say brush your sides, none of this wide armed stuff. Puts a lot of stress on your shoulder joints. So here you can see that we need that hip flexion when your knee comes towards your chest, okay? So to basically train that, we are going to train exercises that bring your knee towards your chest. So this is a jackknife, and as you can see, I am letting my back round, which you need for the surfing pop-up, and I'm doing it nice and slow and controlled. If that is too difficult, you can try just being in a plank and bringing your knee to try and touch your elbow. You can do loads of variations. You can bring the knee to the outside of the elbow, or you can bring it to the opposite elbow to get more rotation, for example. If that's too easy, you can do what's called a pike press. So you can do it for reps, or you can try and do it for a hold. If that's still too easy, you can basically make your own complexes. So here I'm doing a pike press into a push-up, into a jackknife, into a push-up, and back into that pike press. Here I'm trying to show you that rotation in the trunk as you're doing a pop-up. I'm trying to show you a slow-mo version. So this is called an oblique windmill. So as you can see, the hand stays on top of the shoulder, and my other hand reaches to touch the floor. If you don't have a kettlebell, you can just do an ordinary side plank, do it for a hold. If that's too easy, add in a twist where your elbow touches your bottom hand. So as you can see, all of my body is in a straight line, and I keep my hips up when I do my rotation. If that's still too easy, I want you to basically come off that bottom knee, and you should be on 2 of your feet. Again, start with holds. If it's too easy, add in that rotation. If you've got a Swiss ball, you can do that same jackknife movement, but just adding in the rotations. Just make sure you're strong enough to do these, as they are quite difficult. And you can also just drill the pop-ups. I know the movement patterns and some examples of the exercises. All you have to do is repeat it for your prescribed sets and reps to match your training aim. So I was doing it for strength. Make sure you pick an exercise variation which is hard enough. So I would need to work at 85% or higher of my 1 rep max to gain strength. If you don't know what that means, go back and look at episode 1. I just want to mention that, of course, these are certain examples of those exercises and those movement patterns. There are, of course, hundreds and hundreds of different variations, and the ones I've shown you might not be the right one for you. So just keep that in mind. Hopefully you'll be able to apply what I've taught you in previous episodes to change to be more of a power session or endurance or whatever you want, really. So pop-ups can, of course, be an issue because of technique. And it's very common in surfers who are switching from their foamies to their first hardboard, or from their first hardboard to a shortboard. So the technique becomes so different when you switch from, say, like a mini mal down to a shortboard. You need much more power to push yourself up. There's much less stability in a smaller board, and basically it just translates to you have to do everything much faster and better. So do yourself a favor and start working on dryland now, and that'll help you tons when you're in the water. So thanks to watching to this point in the video, and as promised, I'm going to give you your bonus tips on hip mobility. So first off, we're going to work on our hip flexors. So sitting tends to do some funky stuff to our hips, so we need to make sure that we have adequate mobility. So find yourself a wall, put your foot on the back, and then all you're going to do is squeeze your bum forward, and this is going to help to drive your hips forward, and then I want you to press into your back foot into the wall for 10 seconds. When the 10 seconds is over, you should get a little bit of movement. You can add in some upper body reach overs as well to get a deeper stretch into some of those muscles in the lower back, and repeat that 3 times on each side. Next on to the adductor rock, just sitting back and forwards. You should feel this in the inner groin. Then when I find a sticking point, I'm going to stop and I'm going to press into the ground again for 10 seconds. It's called a PNF. Then after 10 seconds, you're going to get that extra range, let your foot slide, and repeat that process again on the other leg and up to 3 times. Here I'm going to show you how to stretch out your glutes. So this is to get the deep piriformis and external rotators. Can add in some rotation coming up and down. Again, when I find that sticking point, I'm just going to press into the ground for 10 seconds, or I can keep doing my forward and backwards bending. Moving the foot into a more square position, this is going to get more your glute max. Again, you can start with a PNF if you want, or with some light, what I call flossing, going down and up, or do a combination of both, whatever you feel works best for you. Then just repeat the same on the other side. So now we've loosened everything off and we've got new range to work with. We want to press save on that new range, so we're going to work in those new ranges. This is going to train your internal rotation, which is really important for surfing. It is normal to feel cramp on the outside of your hip, so just so you know, and almost expected. So I'm pressing into the ground with my back knee and trying to lift that back foot just a tiny bit off the ground, and pressing hard into the ground with my hands as well. Onto end range hip flexion strength. So I'm going to press as hard as I can into the ground with my hands and lift one leg at a time. Again, cramping is very normal during these exercises. So here I'm showing you what not to do. Don't lean back, don't lose that squish with the hands. If you want to make it harder, walk your hands out further. And if that's too difficult, walk your hands back towards your hips. And try get somewhere around 3 times 10 reps or anything in between, and build it up. That brings me to the end of episode 4. In our next episode, we're going to be breaking down turning. So looking at what movement patterns you use, what muscles you use, and again, a practical session to give you some surfing exercises to improve your turns on the land for when you're in the water. As always, thank you for watching, and if you did enjoy this episode, we would really appreciate if you could give this video a thumbs up, perhaps share it with someone who surfs, and consider subscribing so you don't miss out on any future content. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.